Hello everyone, I hope you're well. Welcome to my YouTube channel. I thought I'd pop by and have a play with the little gel press. I've got these little gel presses online now on my shop, and the reason I've got them is they're 3 by 5 inches. And as you know, I always tend to use 4 by 6 inch piece of card for my card blanks. And I was thinking that the gel press, the small one, let's just grab this. She says, so just grab that. You should see the state of my 5 by 7 one compared to this. Now they recommend those that, you know, make the gel presses, that you should put your gel presses between 2 pieces of copier paper, because initially when they're new, obviously they get better the more they use, but I'm not even going to do that. I'm just going to go for it, and the background is the background and that's it. But what I liked about this is, let's grab an acrylic block. So let's take this off the acetate and let's grab an acrylic block, because that's going to make it a lot easier just to place it where we wish. So that's now on there. You can lift it up so there's no air bubbles, not that it really matters because it's the underside. But now I can turn that over and I can see exactly where I'm going. But what I liked about the 3 by 5 inch gel press is it leaves me a margin, sort of a border around the outer edge of the 4 by 6, which is lovely. So I quite like that, and that's why I've bought the 3 by 5 inch gel presses in. And I've also bought the 5 by 7 ones because that's my favourite size as well. But I really want to use this one. So I'm going to create a project, and I thought I would use, she says, stamp set TE1. I thought we'd use TE1, which is the Alpine. We're going to use that stamp set. I'm going to leave it there at the moment. My desk is in a total mess because I've been doing some gardening and I'm looking after my poorly dog, and tidying seems to be the last thing to do at the moment. So what I've got, whenever I've got my gel press, I always seem to have a spare piece of card. It's just a habit that I get into, and I like doing that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take Distress Oxide Vintage Photo, and I'm just going to apply the Vintage Photo just to my gel press. Now the gel press, it is better the more you use it. My other one is so well used, it's unbelievable. So we'll just give this a really good tapping of that ink. And what I'm going to do is just lightly go over that with my brayer. And you don't think you're removing any ink, but if you go to a spare piece of card, let's bring this in, keep brayering that off, and hopefully you can see, let me stand up, you can see how much ink, even just from a light brayering off. And my ink pad is not a very juicy one because it is well used. What I'm going to do then is I'm going to take Wilted Violet. I'm just going to take the Wilted Violet, which, as I know, is a nice strong colour. There we go. And I'm going to pick up the Wilted Violet with a fan brush, and I'm going to add nothing to the gel press. You too can add nothing. Let's add a little bit more water. So I'm adding very light splatters, but I just need a little bit more. That's better. So I'm just picking up the Wilted Violet. And what I love about using the oxides on the gel press is that I really don't have to rush, and I don't have to panic. I can just take my time. Let's just clean that brush now, just so that we've got, look how much pigment is in there. And rather than waste that, let's just move that out to the side. You've got this spare piece of card. You can just pick that ink up so that you've got a bit of ink on the card that you've just braided off the brown, and just leave that on one side. And then, because I've got quite a bit of moisture, I'm bound to have, because I've just splattered that with the fan brush, I'm just wiping around the edge, just so that that's not sort of impeding anything I do. And as you can see, I've got a few splatters of that purple on my card. That doesn't matter one bit. So I'm just trying to decide, am I going to go that way, I think? Yes, yes, yes. It's like how I couldn't make my mind up. Which side? Or shall I have it that way? Bear with me. You see, this is what I love. I haven't got to rush. So let's grab the stamp. There we go. So I can just grab the stamp. Oh yes, so I can have it that way. Let's have it that way. So because I've got it on the acrylic block, I can now sort of judge where I want to put this. But I love the fact, well, for this gel press, I can see through it because it's clean. My other one is so well used, it's not clean. And if I place this down now, you can see that the ink is just making its mark on there. If I press, the ink starts to move. Just starts to move. And there's not much of the purple showing up on there, because obviously it was quite watered. That's absolutely fine. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to let the gel press do its thing, just on there. Just allow it. Look, if I press, it'll just fill in the gaps. But if you give it a few moments, it means then that it absorbs into the card and it doesn't just all suction all to this centre area here. So it isn't all then going to there. So I always like to give that a few moments just to add the colour to the card and absorb some of that colour to the card as well. So I'm just going to grab my heat tool. And that's because before I add a second layer of colour, I really would like to dry the layer so that it actually layers, rather than the secondary colour on there sort of merging in. So I'm just going to remove my gel press. Now look at that, just a lovely, lovely background, but I love it because I've now got that border over there. So what I'm going to do then is I'm just going to sort of layer a little bit of the wilted violet, and I'm just going to, and I've just added it sort of towards the bottom. I'm just going to remove some of this extra colour just onto my secondary background. Now I don't know how much colour's on there because my gel press is super clean because it's a new gel press, and I can't see how much colour is on there. Let's just give this a dry. And again, I can turn that little gel press around. Oh, I haven't dried it, so let's dry this. I don't have to dry it completely, just so that some of that colour lays on the top. Now I've just got a little bit of purple on there, but what I can do is I can layer the gel press just over the top, which is wonderful, and just add touches of that colour. And I'm not going to let that sit as long, so I'm going to give that a dry. So just giving that a dry, rather than blotting the ink, I'm drying it. I can see this size I am going to use quite a bit. I can just tell. So Let me lift that up just so that you can see there is some purple in there. And then we've got this background here where I've just added the extra touches. So it just works really nicely. And what I can do now is I can bring the gel press back in again. I don't need to clean it. And then I'm going to add a little bit more of the wilted violet. And this time I'm not going to brayer any of that off. Let's just clean that up. And I'm going to add some water. But this time I've not brayered the colour off. You know, like I did previously, I've not done it this time. I've left the colour on there without using my brayer. So now I've got a darker, if I turn the card over, you can see I've got a lot more of that purple on there towards the bottom area. So let's just dry around the gel press again, just so that I've not got that moisture sort of getting in my way. And then I can place this over the top. And I can leave it like that just so that it leaves those dots on there, which I quite like the dots. If you press, you can see it merges more. You can see it's expanding. So you can keep looking at it. You see, what I might do is when I get some more stock of these 3x5 inch gel presses, I might get another one for myself so that I've got one for inks and one for paints, because I quite like, I mean, I know that's a luxury, but I quite like the fact that I can see where everything is going. I can just see what is happening. So it's just beautiful. And I love the fact that I can use my inks on there. And the oxide inks really take well to the gel press. And that's because they're a pigment diffusion. And because of that pigment element, they've got some opacity, which means opaque. So I'm just giving that time because I do like how this looks. So I'm not rushing. I'm taking my time and allowing that to do its thing. So just give it time. And it's just a little bit of patience, that's all. Because sometimes we can lift it too soon. And what I don't want it to do is all this beautiful ink just to suck into the centre. I'm giving it that time just so that the moisture stops moving as much and some of it is retained in that position rather than sucking into the centre area. So if I pick this up now, I can see there's less movement. There we go. And I just think that is a truly wonderful background. And what I can do then is whatever is left on the gel press, I can just add it to my other background. If there's anything on, and there is, it's just wonderful. I'm never tired of the gel press and inks. I love the gel press with inks, but I think that is a truly beautiful background. Now, I just need to decide whether I want to keep it that way or now I want to turn it this way. And that's what I think I want to do. I just love it. I love that back. You see that? You could just add a sentiment and nothing else. It's just so beautiful in its own right. Oh, I just love that. You see, I could do that over and over and over again. I just love it so much. Yeah, I'm going to go this way. But I just love that so much. I could do it over and over again. So I'm going to take the alpine plant and I can see that it'll go beautifully there. Just wonderful. So I'm now going to grab my acrylic block. See, and I instantly want to do loads of backgrounds like that now, but look how simple it was. I don't have to mask anything off because the gel plate is the perfect size for our 4x6 inch card. Wonderful. Just what I want. I absolutely love it. Right, so what I'm going to do now, am I going to use oxides? Shall we use oxides? And shall I just stop talking to myself? I've got that many colours out, it's just madness. Do you know, I've got all the colours out I need. Have I got mowed lawn? I'm talking to you as if you're sitting in the craft room with me. I'm terrible. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take, I don't know, I'm going to take my Vintage Photo Distress Oxide ink, and I'm going to just add that towards the pot area, just the area. It doesn't have to be, I'm going over the leaves as well. It doesn't have to be precise. So I'm going over the leaves as well. And I'm then going to use the Wilted Violet to go over the flower area. So I'm just adding that to go over. And if you can't see, obviously, depending on your light, just tilt your stamp a little bit so you can see the moisture on there. But lots of tapping motion. Just give that lots of tapping. Don't scrimp on that tapping. And I don't have to rush. I can just take my time. So then I'm going to use Bundled Sage just to sort of go around some of the leaf area and some of the stem. Doesn't matter if it hits the pot, it's not a problem. Then I'm going, so that was Bundled Sage. I'm then going to use Mowed Lawn. So a little bit of Mowed Lawn, and a little bit on the stem. Nowhere to put anything as usual. And I think what I'm going to do is very high up, just spritz the stamp with a little bit of moisture. I just held it really high up. So I'm then going to add my floral just there. And what I'm going to do is just give that a little bit of time to absorb onto the surface of the card. And obviously I'm not just going to leave it with the oxides, I'm going to add some definition with coloured pencils. So just give that a little bit of time. Never sort of rush your process, just take your time. And I'm just making sure that that oxide makes a reasonable impression just on the card. And that's all I want. Let me lift this up for you. Can you see? I've just sort of got an impression on there. So I've got my impression just on there. So now I'm going to grab my fine brush, a little bit of water. Let's take a little bit of water. And I'm just going to drag some of the colour that's there just into the areas, just so I can see what I've got. So just dragging that just into the area. So at the moment you can't see much because there's not much definition on there. So I'm just going to, so all I'm doing is adding a little bit of moisture to the oxide that we've added to the stamp. Just so that we can see sort of what we've got. We can see some of the detail that we've got. Let me just turn that off. And then just... So by just touching everything with a little bit of moisture, it just makes it a little bit brighter, just so that you can see where you are going. You're not doing anything technical at the moment. There we go. So nothing technical in the slightest at the moment. So let's just move this out of the way. So let me lift this so you can just see at the moment it's just like that with the oxides on there. So I'm going to add some definition. So let's just give that a little bit of a dry. There we go. That gel press is just the perfect size, which is what I was really hoping. Oh, and I've got some sort of purpley colours on here, so that's good, isn't it? So why not use ones we've got? So let me bring these colours in. So this is Black Cherry PC1078, and I'm using my Prismacolor pencils. And what I'm going to do, really I should sharpen them because it's going to be far easier just getting into the fine details. And I'm supposed to use my non-dominant hand with the sharpener and turn the sharpener, not the pencil. As you can see, I'm not good at it, especially with my non-dominant hand, especially when you've been digging. But it's supposed to cause less breakages. Oh, there you go. I'm going to need that for doing more sort of sharpening. You know me by now. So I've got the Black Cherry, which is 1078. And what I'm going to do is just add a little bit of detail with the Black Cherry. You know, after 2 seconds, I forget what colour I'm using. Seriously, my poor little brain. So I'm just going around. And I'm just going to add a little bit of the Black Cherry just around the florals. So this is sort of, will give me a little bit of the darkness that I need. You can colour them however you wish. I like simple methods. I don't like anything too complicated. I really don't. But even just by adding that little bit of Black Cherry, you instantly sort of get a little bit of dimension. Just even if you didn't want, you know, if colouring's not your thing and you're like, no, I don't like it, even by just adding a little bit of an outline, it's just wonderful. So that's my dark colour. So let's have, I want them a bit lighter now. So I'm going to go to Lilac PC956, and I'm going to irritate you because I'm going to pathetically do it with my non-dominant hand again. It does give you a nice sharp point. And I must admit, it has worked, less breakages. And if somebody recommends something, I do like to give that a try. She says, have I got sharpenings all around here? So I'm just going to add a very sort of light layer of the, what colour did I say it was? Lilac. PC956, you know, poor old soul. Can't remember what I said 2 minutes ago. So I'm just going to add a little bit of this lilac. And I'm not pressing on hard. What I'm doing is I'm just going around each of the petals. Let's hold that up a little bit. Because I've got a daylight light on, but I still can't see properly. There we go. So I don't want to press too hard. I'm just giving that a light sort of light colouring. And I've shown you in a Frenchy how to use this pot with something different. Let me see if I've got that here. Let me see if I've got that Frenchy here. So yes, there you go. I showed you how to use the pot on the Thrinchy by adding the tulips from TE number 6, the branched heart. So that's what I love about stamps. They're so versatile. They really are versatile. I just love them. And what I love about this colour palette, it's sort of really looks sort of vintage and really goes with the auricula kind of style, I feel. What I'm going to do then is bring in a little bit of violet, PC932. And I'm just holding it up, really, because I can hardly see what I'm doing. And I'm just going to bring a little bit of that violet just here on the centres there. Now, I'm not pressing too hard. And these are tiny florals. You don't need to press too hard. You know, we're just bringing a little bit of colour in. And if you want to, you can colour these quite loosely. You don't have to press too hard. You can colour quite loosely if you wish. So it's entirely up to you. So I'm just adding a little bit of that violet. And it's funny because they really do look vintage. It's just lovely. And what I'm going to do then is I'm going to come back to the black cherry. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to bring in a little bit more depth just with the black cherry. So I'm just pressing a little bit harder just to bring in a little bit more of that depth. So I'm highlighting some of the outer lines a little bit as well. Just highlighting those a little bit as well. Just to give me a little bit more depth to those florals. But look how our beautiful background really sort of, now you can see a little bit more depth in there, but how that background works beautifully, don't you think? So I'm still not pressing super hard, but I am getting a little bit more. And you're probably looking at me thinking, why is she holding the card? I'm holding it to make it as awkward as possible for myself. No, it's because the light is not brilliant. So I'm just holding it up so I can see. Look at that. Doesn't that look beautifully vintage against this? Oh, just love it. Oh, I just love that. So what I'm going to do, we won't sort out the pot yet. Let's do the leaves. So I've got none of them colours out. So let's grab some more colours just to add to the pile of chaos that's on my desk anyway. So let's add some more chaos to the desk because that's me all over. I always have chartreuse because I like to bring that lightness. I want a little bit of it. What colour are you? Kelly Green. It's a nice name. And I want them quite light. What colour are you? I fancy a bit of a jade green. I'm sorry, I don't do colour swatches. I know a lot of you do beautiful colour swatches, but no, I don't, I'm afraid, but that's me. So this time I'm going to do it a little bit different with this one. I'm going to mark out where I want that lighter area, just so I can visualise just a little bit of the lightness on the leaves. And this one, if you're unsure, just take a look at your packaging if you can't see where you want to go. So I've just added that light area. And what I'm going to do then, I'm going to take the Kelly Green PC 1096. I love how they think up these names. I'm like, what colour? And what I'm going to do then is just come in just with this Kelly Green, or whatever they call it. So just adding a little bit of the Kelly Green. And that goes a little bit darker there. There we go. So just adding a little bit of the Kelly Green. And I'm only going in very lightly. Again, just to continue with that sort of vintage feel. And then I want to have some touches of sort of jade, which is PC 1021. And if you want to leave this coloured quite loosely, it does work quite nicely. You don't have to blend it totally. It works quite nicely with the overall sort of vintage touch. So let's do my non-dominant hand again. Turn the sharpener, not the pencil, Tracy. Trying to listen to the professionals. There we go. Look at the point on that. Yum, yum, yum. Right. I know, I am a bit strange, aren't I? But I must admit, turning it with my non-dominant hand, you do get that nice point and less breakages, so they know what they're talking about. So I'm going to come in now, and I'm going to just add a little bit more darkness. And working with sharp pencils just makes such a huge difference for applying that ink. Makes a massive difference. There we go. And then going to come to my jade green. And don't forget, we've got those oxide inks on there as well. So it'll be a slightly different look. Mainly because you've got the oxide inks on there as well. And then I'm just going to take some of that chartreuse and just blend that colour just with the chartreuse. Just let's lift that up just so you can see. We're just getting a little bit of that blend in there. Let's just bring this down a bit just so we've got those leaf branches on there. There we go. So again, let's add more to the collection of stuff on my desk. And I want to bring in some browns for the pot. And then you wonder why it takes me an age to clear everything away. Some browns there, would they be sufficient? Let's have a look. Wrong one. Which is always the case. I always open the wrong one. There we go, there's all the browns. So, sort of that colour, and maybe a bit of, what colour are you? Sienna brown, that's quite nice. And as you've guessed, none of them are super sharp. It's given me plenty of practice with that non-dominant hand. Are you bored of the non-dominant hand yet? So I've got Sienna Brown PC945, and I'm going to add a little bit. My hands shoot then. I'm just going to add a little bit. Now don't forget I've got that oxide on there, so it's going to be a totally different look. So I'm just going around the leaf and just adding a little bit of darkness. Just around, is that part of my pot? Yeah. So I'm just making it a little bit darker. Just around the edge of that pot. But I'm loving the vintage feel I'm getting to that. So again, here we go, boring again, non-dominant hand. And then we've got Burnt Ochre, PC943. I'm going to come in with the Burnt Ochre. And I even love the other background that we've got. I'm going to leave, as if this is casting some shadow, I'm going to leave it so that there's some light area here. To leave a little bit of area light there and a little bit in the centre as well. So we're just adding the detail and it's just looking a little bit more vintage, which is just lovely. Now, if there's any professionals out there watching, I do apologise for my really lack of being able to use my non-dominant hand. I'm hopeless. There we go. So I'm getting a real vintage feel to this now. So this is Pumpkin Orange, PC1032. So let's bring in a little bit of that pumpkin orange. Just to give a little bit of that sort of terracotta-y feel. And I can easily go back in and add some touches of white area where I need to, no problem at all. So I'm going to go back to my dark colour, the Sienna Brown, and use that. So I'm now going to come in and just add a little bit more of the Sienna Brown, and I'm just going to just make it a little bit darker, just where the leaves are, just because they would be casting a shadow anyway. I'm just making it a little bit darker. Then we'll go to our Burnt Ochre, PC943, and just blend a little bit more of the ochre. And then finally the pumpkin orange. Just a little bit of that pumpkin orange. Where's my if you're unsure about details, you can just bring in your packaging as well and just have a look at your packaging if you want ideas with your packaging. It's entirely up to you. I'm going to add some touches of white. You really should let that rest. I'm just going to come in, where's my green? And I'm just going to come in just with a little bit more depth, just with the green. And I can add that because I didn't press too hard initially, so I can come in and just add a little bit more depth to those. And that's why it's important that you don't press too hard initially, or else you really cannot come back in and add more of that colour. If you can let things rest, it's always a good idea, because you'll just sort of, well, there's a lot of white on there, Tracy. Not. Let's grab some scrap paper. I think this is a newer Posca pen. So when you first get your Posca pen, if you haven't given them a shake, you see it can be quite watery. So you want to give it a shake. Let me listen to that one. So that needs a bit more work shaking. That looks a little bit better. So I'm just going to add a little sort of touches of white. And then, so I'm just adding some touches of white just to my pot. And I'm never, to be honest, I'm never very precise. I like to go for a simple option, so I want some, as if it's got some casting of some light. I like to sort of do it very sort of scribbly and doodly, because that's who I am. I'm just a doodler, you know. I'm nobody professional. It's just I'm just a doodler. So I do like to just spend a little bit of time just doodling away. And I often come back and I'll add several layers of the white just to build up the opacity. So you can see I've just scribbled my bits of white, and it really is scribble, because it just looks more vintage and just adds to it. Oh, don't do the centre of the flowers then, will you, Tracy? So let's do the centre of the flowers. Now what I'm going to do, these are very delicate, dainty auriculas, and they're often on shelves, or theatres they're often called. So I don't want to overpower with too much of anything really. I'm just adding a little bit of white. I will hold this up just so that you can see I'm really touching areas with my white pen. I can't take it away, but I can keep building up the opacity of the white and I'm just making it quite doodly. So I can build up the opacity of that. But look how vintage that looks. Oh, just love it. Absolutely love that. So I want to add some shading now, because we don't want this to just sit there. We want it to look like I've thought about it. And guess what? I'm not going to tidy up either after I've done this. But this other background that we created, the secondary background, I love that as well. So you can create another one with that as well. So I'm going to just blend this out. I'm going to add a little bit more of that. So you can see I faff even when I'm just adding some shading to the pot. Never been any different. I've always been sort of a faffy. And what I'm going to do, let's move that pencil out of the way. I'm going to take, which colour is this one? Lavender. Let's take some lavender. Guess what? I'm using the non-dominant hand. There we go. And I'm going to add some lavender, PC934, just a little bit more of the lavender now. Nice bit of lavender colour, which picks up this colour here from the wilted violet. But again, because I didn't press too hard initially, it's still allowing me to lay down that colour with no trouble at all. Oh, I just love it. I absolutely love that. It's just so beautifully vintage. So I'm going to come back in with my doodles again. Let's add a few little dots to the centre. Just a few little touches of white, just to lift it a little bit. And again, you can lay down this white again with those scribbles. Just so that it's got a few more highlights, because I just think it looks better when it's got a few sort of highlights. Maybe you can hear the pen scratching lightly because I'm just doodling, just to give it a little bit of, there we go, just a bit of doodling, just because I love it anyway. So I don't know what colour that is. I'm then going to add a bit of text. Now I have no idea where my stamp is. Here it is. Let's place this back. Now on TE1, you've got the word alpine plant, but on TE2, looks like I've got this little bit of leaf cut out there. On TE2, you've got this often displayed in individual pots on shelves on TE2. So let's take that. And we'll just grab a smaller acrylic block. And I'm going to use the wilted violet. Preferably, you know, it really does help if you actually place it on the acrylic block straight. It makes a massive difference, you know. So let's use that wilted violet. And the bits of debris you can see on my card are bits of sharpenings. So I'm just going to add a little bit. Do I want it that side? No, this side. So I'm just adding a little bit of stamping. Now, you looking at it now, you're hardly going to see anything, but don't worry. I will show you. I'm going to take it off the acrylic block. I knew I was going to do that. I just knew it. And I'm going to sort of just press lightly. There we go. So I'm going to ink it there. I'm going to place a little bit of stamping just there. Now, don't press your stamp down too much. You don't need to squish it. I'm going to lift this up and show you. This will just add a little bit of text that's sort of, I'm hardly touching now, just so it's got little bits of the text. So it looks very botanical, but you don't necessarily, oh, I love that. Right, let's just clean that stamp. And I'm cleaning it because it's got the oxide ink on there. And if I don't clean it and then I come back to my VersaFine Clair, it'll just affect that. There we go. So I'm going to use the word Auricula from TE2. That's why I love having words and being able to mix and match different stamps. Let's make sure I've got the right ink pad. So I'm using my VersaFine Clair Nocturne. Now let's just make sure that's not going to drop off. I'm going to place this there. And I'm not going to press too hard. All I'm doing is allowing that ink, I'm not pressing, I'm just allowing that ink to absorb onto the surface of the card because you've got that oxide ink on there. And you need to be aware of that. Just give that a few more minutes longer. Lovely. But doesn't that background make it for the auricula? I just think it makes it just wonderful. Oh, I do love creating. Doesn't matter what time of year it is. I do love creating. So I'm just going to blend that out. So I'm just going to touch that. A little bit more water. There we go. Then I'm going to add a little tiny touch of shading just down again. And just see if there's enough moisture on there. Just to bring a little bit of shading. Let's bring a little bit of shading around the pot here. Again, a little bit of water. Start with a little bit first, and then you can always add a little bit more water should you need it. And then just adding a little bit more shading here and there. Just to highlight. I think I want it a little bit darker. I'm not really using much moisture because I love the vintage feel of that. I'm then going to use my smaller Posca pen, which was the PC1-1MR. The MR, I'm sure, is to do with the nib, etc. So I'm going to add a few splatters, and these will add smaller sort of splatters. And you can see I'm turning the card just so that then I avoid just adding splatters to the auricular word. But you see this text here, it just adds a little bit of something, just adding a little bit of text. It really does add a little bit of something. It's just lovely. I really love that. I'm going to give that, that area should be dry. There's no splatters on there. So I'm just going to take that, is it the black cherry? And I'm just going to highlight the little circle in each of them. Just a little bit more. That's more for probably my eyes. You won't see it much in camera, but I will, of course, lift that up. And I've still, because I've not pressed too hard, I've still got the option to bring in some darker lines if you wish, just because I've not pressed on too hard. So I've still got the option, if I want to, just to bring in a few darker lines, because I've not pressed on too hard anywhere. I can even use a little bit of the purple just to highlight the stem, because with purple you can also add a little bit of shading. Sometimes blues and purples are used just to add a little bit of shading. There we go, just to give them. And then there's, there we go. But you can, if you wish, just add a little bit of shading with your purple. It works really well. It's surprising what purple and blue can do. Just love that, absolutely love it. So then I'm going to use, oh, look at the stuff, it's just everywhere. Which stamp set? I've not even put this stamp set back right, and you can tell because the hair is sticking on the plat acetate rather than the actual, you know, real bit that I need it to be sticking on. I'm then going to use the pheasant, which is that one, from TE32. Let's take the pheasant. Do you know, I thoroughly enjoyed just creating, just because I feel like it. Look how many times I tap that pheasant. Sometimes frustrations are caused because we just don't take a little bit of care just to make sure we add enough ink. Check your stamp's not going to fall off. And then I'm just going to add the little pheasant here, like so. And it's not really about pressing, it's just about giving it time just to absorb onto the surface of that card, mainly because I've got those oxide inks on there. Place our little pheasant back, and I might have something coming soon that will go with the pheasant, just so that it extends our releases further. So I'm then going to just add a little bit of white just here and there, and I'm not adding too much white. I quite like the pheasant like that. We just need to give a little bit of shading just so that it's not floating. There we go. Let's wipe up that moisture. Now, sometimes I doodle lines around, but the reason I'm not with this piece is I quite like the fact of the natural edges just to go with that vintage feel. I'm then going to add this to a black mat just to make everything pop, and it'll bring out the black that is in the pheasant. So let's just grab my adhesive. Take those. There we go. So I'm just going to add that to our black mat that is perfect for our 4 by 6 inch pieces. And I tend to use a wet adhesive just because when it comes to double-sided tape, I'm hopeless because I always want to move it. I'm then going to use a 5 by 7 card blank. Let's get one that's preferably clean. I do like to use a clean one. I can tell I've obviously touched that a bit. And before you adhere that, just make sure the edges of your card are stuck down. Just take our adhesive. Make sure the card is opening the right way, because I've done that quite a few times and all. And the warmth from my finger, I know my fingers are clean because I've wiped them. The warmth of my finger will just get that sort of adhering a little bit quicker, just so it grabs hold. And if we just lift that up, I just love the vintage feel to that. Oh, just lovely. And I love how the gel press has made that background. Some or more of those backgrounds are going to appear again, even though I've done them for years, but they're going to appear again. So I hope you've enjoyed that step by step and that you'll give that a go as well. So love to all, and I'll see you all soon. Bye for now.